I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thanks for your patience with my audio problems. So I'm calling the meeting to order of the Kampoosa Stewardship Committee. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from 11/21. I read through them and I personally didn't have any changes. I thought they were well done.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of, tell me the date, 10/21?
Second.
They were
Sounds
from,
good.
they were from 11/21.
11/21.
Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. So those are approved. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go to our usual topic, outreach and records collection. So hopefully this list is still correct from the last meeting. So Stockbridge Conservation Commission documents, Lisa, I just didn't know if there was anything additional you needed to share. I know that there was.
Well, I've been trying to work my way through them, reading the ones that I think would be the most interesting. And they actually raise a lot more questions than they answer for me. I did look at the order of conditions for 2010 for invasive management. And I talked to Sari, who's just Toro's partner, and she said they treated for Phragmites and buckthorn probably till 2014. I didn't see anything in the Concom that went past that. It did say, when I read the order of conditions, it did say they were supposed to do a yearly report on the work and the results. I haven't found that yet. But that would be interesting to see how effective the treatment was.
Who's the they? When you say they were supposed to do?
Native habitat restoration, just Toro's company.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. But that means that somebody would have been paying them to do that, I'm assuming, right?
I would think so, yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I sent you an email. She said she would be interested in coming, not joining the committee, but coming.
Yeah.
She would be great to have here.
So what I'm going to try to hopefully remember to do, I sent her the agenda directly and said, I know you guys had talked, and I definitely knew she didn't feel like she had the capacity to be part of the committee. But I also told her she probably has, more institutional knowledge than maybe all the rest of us put together. So it would be great for her to come. So I did send her the agenda. I didn't hear back, but I'm sure there will come a time where we have a topic where we're like, we can't even cover the topic without her assistance. So whether, one of us goes and meets with her one-on-one and then brings that info back, or whether she can join us, whatever will make it easiest for her schedule, I think is fine. So.
And the other question, just as I was going through the documents, I still don't have a sense of who owns what and how they get approval, how different agencies get approval for doing different things. I know you talked about, you sent an email on the controlled burn. I'm guessing that went to the Concom a while ago for approval, but I don't really know. I mean, anything.
It's very, from what I learned on that, it's very preliminary conversations. They were just having a conversation with the Marians and the fire chief.
Yeah.
They're planning on presenting a plan in 23 to then in early 2023 to then do a control. They would need to do some water management on the bog because it's too full in order for them. So right before it starts to freeze, they would drain the water. So this is all part of their plan. They would drain some of the water so that they could then do a controlled burn probably at the end of, in the winter, beginning of the winter of 2023. So in December, about a year from now, they were planning on doing something.
They should. And who's they?
This is the information I got from our fire chief, but he gave me the contact info for the state people. This isn't Mass Wildlife. Yeah, Alex, there you go. Yeah. There you go.
Okay. So I would imagine it should come to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, I guess I would assume, but once again, this was all pretty kind of casual right now. Yeah. So
I think, a question I would like to at some point answered is who owns what and how is it all being
Yeah.
coordinated and communicated.
If we're going to stay on that subject, I received from Father Richard, who they, at least Fish and Wildlife plus others, met with. I have a map here of the land, the burn areas, and several other neighbors that would be included in that. So you can each take one of these.
This was burned or to be burned?
To be burned.
To be burned.
And then
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I
Arthur.
also have from Father Richard an email from Alex from Fish and Wildlife. And here are the points he made. And this would be a early description of their definition of what a burn contains. And I can give you these here. So
maybe we're going a little bit, well, let's circle back on this specific project, because I reached out to Alex, and then Rich had also scanned some stuff that he got from the fire chief that he sent to all of us. And then Arthur, it sounds like you have a few bits and bobs. So let's come back to that, but back to the question about who owns what and which state agency and who do they have to go to. And then I guess to add on to that, one of my questions is then when is the town made aware of this? And so I think in our discussion in the last meeting, when we talked about being a clearinghouse for information, I think we can also, I think everybody calls themselves the hub of the wheel, but we could be the hub of the wheel in sort of helping connect a lot of these agencies. And anybody that I've spoken to, and I spoke to Alex, he was quite energetic about knowing what else is going on and being involved. And so what I like so far is that anybody outside this committee that we've spoken to is quite happy that we're here. But I think getting our arms around who owns what in the state agencies and when there's a project, for example, Tennessee Gas Pipeline might be planning on burning Phragmites, and Fish and Wildlife is planning on burning Phragmites, and Mass DOT is burning Phragmites. So at what point does everybody get together and we make sure we're not just working on one little part of this whole ACEC and we're kind of bringing it all together? That's sort of my personal hope in what we're trying to accomplish someday.
Yes.
Okay, so then back to Stockbridge Conservation Commission docs. Lisa, are you just going to keep digging through?
Yeah, I'll keep going through, and, I had made a list of what's there.
Okay.
Some point, I'll compare that list to what Rich has found and, see if it's a duplicate and then we can talk about what to do with all the documents.
Okay, so I'm going to leave this on the agenda.
Okay,
Just, to check in each month.
that's fine.
Could I just ask, I somehow didn't get that list. Would you mind?
I sent it to you after the meeting.
Did you? Okay, because I didn't see it in my email.
Okay, because
Okay.
right after the last meeting, I
Okay.
sent it, but I'll send it
Okay,
again.
thank you.
Yeah.
Laura, could I make a request that we change the order of the next items? Because Rennie Wendell has shown up here from the Nature Conservancy.
Oh,
And
super.
he's here in the audience. So rather than, wait through till we go through all of these things.
Yeah, so let's do Nature Conservancy. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, would you like to join us and just?
Sure. Sorry, I spent the last 20 minutes roaming around this place.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry.
Have a seat or whatever.
Yeah, just off a chair. Can you be heard by, if you speak, can you be heard? Because you should feel free to.
Just bring a chair right up.
I would have him go up.
There we go, how's that?
And just for those other people who are on the call that maybe don't know who you are, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure, my name is Rennie Wendell. I'm a land steward for the Nature Conservancy. We own a little bit of property in Kampoosa.
Okay.
Can you tell me how much a little bit is? Roughly?
It's, 10, 15 acres. It's small. I can get you the exact amount.
I know that's fine, just to give
And
you.
a map if you wanted to see it. It's off Rattlesnake Road. And there.
Thank you.
Hi, Brett's iPad Pro here is Brett and Dina Winehouse. Dina's folks have a property on Prospect Hill that abuts the bog. And we received a letter recently inviting us. So thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Okay, you're welcome. So, so Louise, was it you who connected with Rini? Yeah.
I think eventually, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
we could try to get out of him what we're trying to get out of him and then figure out what our next steps should be.
For sure.
Right. I think at this point, we're in sort of in search of documentation.
Right.
That organizations are willing and able to share in some way. And we're certainly willing and able to do heavy lifting in terms of copying or, anything like that, document storage, but are just interested in whether you all have things that you can share and, to the extent that this is of interest to the nature.
Sure. So I went back and looked through our files and I talked to my supervisor and she said that there was a long history of the Stewardship Committee for the ACEC. And we got a bunch of documents. I started putting them into a box folder that I can share with you. And I mentioned to you, Louise, like some of the stuff is sensitive with the rare species stuff. So it's just the end of the calendar year and I'm kind of swamped and there's just two of us. So I did start it and I am working on it. So I haven't forgotten about you.
Welcome.
But we haven't, it's actually pretty daunting. We have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And is it current? Are you still actively doing things there?
No. I mean, the stuff I have
Yeah.
for you guys is from the last stewardship, the steering committee.
Okay.
What we do there is just monitoring now.
Yep.
Yeah. Just keep an eye.
So did it make, no, go ahead.
Monitoring what? Just,
Our property boundaries.
oh, okay,
Yep.
okay. And so I guess I think what I'm sort of starting to put together, having only been involved with this committee for a few months, is, we have lots and lots of stakeholders, but I think we have a lot of stakeholders like Nature Conservancy, like BNRC, that have really similar missions and similar goals. And so I guess I don't know exactly. When you're saying you have lots and lots of documents and things like that, I guess my question is, it is even worth it for us to try to get everything from you or have you pass everything to us? Because at some point it's important to know what has already happened and also what might currently be happening in the ACEC, because that's the thing that I'm a little nervous about, is we don't know really what's going on there right now at all. But I'm also more concerned than anything about in the future, what are we going to do? Was the Nature Conservancy part of the original committee? Do you know?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. Okay. So then I think that could be something we could talk about going forward. I know you're saying there's only two of you, but if you have any thoughts about what kind of role you think it would make sense for Nature Conservancy to play, or if there's any special area that you think we should try to focus on first, or any concerns that jump out to you, that's what I'm curious about right now.
And I remember Frank Lowenstein.
Yeah, Frank.
And had done quite a bit of research.
Yeah, there's a bunch of research done.
So I
on
would
the
be really
bog.
interested in seeing that.
Yeah. His name is in a lot of the documents we already have.
Right, but we don't have, I haven't seen the actual research. I've seen what he planned to do, but I haven't seen the results. If folks may have that.
Yeah, I just
Maybe.
gotta do it. I'm sorry, I can't give you anything more concrete. It's,
No problem.
like I said, it's the end of the year.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
No, I don't want you to feel like we have some sort of timeline. It has to be done by January 15th or something like that. I mean, just the fact that you took the time to come to our meeting means a lot. Appreciate that very much.
I think the fact that you guys are back in action and formed is incredible. And I think you're right on the money when you say you're interested in what happens in the future with the bog and what happens within the ACEC. because if people aren't paying attention, nobody's going to say anything, So if something slides under the radar, but you guys are here now, so I think it's fantastic, and I'll do what I can.
Yeah.
When I can.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Laura, I would just say that the things that have happened in the past are of interest because it would be important to know what is effective and what is not effective in terms of management. And until we have a grasp of what has happened and whether or not that has had any effect that is discernible on the current conditions of the ACEC, that to me would seem to be important.
Yeah, I agree. I hope I don't want to come across as I don't think gathering these documents and understanding what happened before. I'm not saying that that's not important. I guess when I hear that, there's only 2 people and it's the end of the year and it is a lot, I just want to make sure we're able to focus our efforts. Because yes, what happened in the past will certainly inform the future. If we find out that in the past, I'm going to make this up, they were monitoring a particular plant because they only found 20 examples of that in the whole ACEC, and then the monitoring fell off, it might be important for us to find out, does that plant still exist? Do we need to do a survey of that plant? I'm just making up this example, but obviously it was such a robust, very successful committee before, and then it just petered out. So I know there's important work to be done. I just want us to be realistic about how much we use of other people's time and stuff like that too.
Yeah, fair enough.
Sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, anything else for us that you want to share, Rini, before we move on to another agenda item?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you don't mind, I'd stick around, and if you think you might need help, like I said, Nature Conservancy was part of the committee before. I asked my boss, and she said if you wanted to be part of the committee, you could step up. So it's up to you guys what you want. I can donate. Maybe I could be part of this, or I could just concentrate on the files. I mean, it's up to you folks.
I mean, I guess I feel like personally that we're still kind of in the gathering of information stage. And I think what would be interesting for me is if you have a recap of the files, or a high level,
Like titles of some of the documents, like I could do that pretty quick.
Or
Yeah.
here's what here's what I take away from all these documents. These are my 3 big takeaways. Here are the 3 big things I'm concerned about, or the 3 things we need to not forget. Something like that. Because you're going to take a look at those documents and be able to read them in a different way than maybe I would. You're more involved. It's your job, it's your passion. So, I feel like you're the functional expert in whatever those documents are. So I think after you've finished kind of putting it all together, I would just be curious to hear from you what the top line, like headlines are. I don't know.
That makes sense, because I'll be going through them.
Yeah.
I got to go through with a critical eye about any rare species stuff. Okay. But yeah, it's not a bad idea to make like a cover sheet and what's in there and what I thought might be helpful for the committee. It's a good idea.
That'd be great, because we've got to come up with a whole list. Well, we need to still do our mission and our vision statement, but then it's also then what are we trying to accomplish? And the previous committee had a really robust plan, with all these subcommittees, the science committee, the endangered species committee, the cultural heritage committee, like all of these subcommittees. We're not at that point, and we might find that some of the things that they worked on are not going to be a focus for us, but we have something else to focus on. So I think I'd just love to hear that from you when you can get there.
Sure.
Right.
And I think it makes sense to do that before you join the committee. I think. I don't know. What does anybody else think?
I was just putting it out there, and I could focus on the documents.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely foresee a time when we would be actively interested in your.
Are your documents electronically available or,
I would, yeah, so they're all electronic and they've already been scanned into our system.
okay.
So it would be like in a shared box folder and I could just give it to somebody and then you guys would have access to that folder. You could print them, you could do whatever you wanted with.
Okay, thanks.
You know, when the time is right, I would really welcome you
Yeah,
on the committee, because I
Oh,
think
I agree.
the Conservancy was such a big player before, and you have so much more capacity than we do. So,
Well, there's only two of us, so yeah, capacity is always an issue, right? Yeah. So what role I could play, I don't know. But, you know, TNC's big with the invasive species. I know the emerging ones that are coming out, we should be looking for, you know, indigenous issues.
Yeah.
That's real big now. You know,
Be really
I
valuable
imagine,
for us,
you
yeah.
know. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, cool. Then I'll just sit in the audience.
Yeah,
You know.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
All right.
Okay, so then I'm gonna go back up where we were before to Lee Land Trust. Lisa, I think you said last time you hadn't gotten a response, so I just left it on here.
Yeah, still no response. I would say take them off.
Okay. So Louise, I wasn't even sure if I should still leave this here. Stockbridge Museum and Archives news clippings. I know you were digging in.
Yeah, no, go ahead and leave that. I still haven't done anything about it, but I will take, I think it was Rich's advice and try to hunt down the sources of anything that's worth getting from the Berkshire Eagle, or if I can, from the Record. But it's, you know, it's certainly not high priority stuff.
And you looked in the library?
I did,
Because
yeah.
they had a lot of articles.
Yeah, I photocopied them all in these miserable photocopies. Yeah, so, but I like that idea of just finding the ones that are worth having in whatever shared files we have and, you know, making them searchable PDFs. So that would be good to get right from the Eagle, if that's the source. Yeah, so let's keep it on, Laura.
Okay. Sure
yeah.
thing. All right, NHESP, I wish I had better news. I have not been able to reconnect with the gentleman who sent us the exuberant email. His name was Chris Bulow. I think what I'm going to do next, and maybe I said this last time and I just didn't do it, I think I need to try to reach out to other people. I don't know if something happened to him or he's no longer with the organization or what, but I think based on that, when I talked about that last time, Rich was going to reach out to the regional person, right?
At Mass Wildlife or? That's
Well,
who I would.
Oh, yours was Mass Wildlife, right?
Yeah.
This is NHESP, you're right. Different. Okay. So I'm going to just go try to find somebody else. I originally had two names of two other people who I reached out to, and they passed my information to Chris, and that's when we got the email from him. So
Was Misty Ann one of the people?
no, it was oh, maybe it was. I'm looking at it was Karen Dolan and Misty Ann Merrill. Yeah.
Okay, because she's usually good about follow through.
Well, I think when I left them the message about who I was and what I was trying to do, one or both of them passed my voicemail, I think, on to Chris. And that's when Chris sent us the email, you know, the group of us, the email to our email address. So, and then I've just never connected with him again. It's so odd. So still on the to-do list.
Oh, yeah,
Input here.
yeah.
I know Chris, what we asking from Chris, I can connect if you need to.
Well, I reached out to him because we were in the Combis system, which is the Massachusetts system that they use to go out for bids on different things. And there were a couple of Kampoosa projects in there that they went out for bids to, I think it was specifically Phragmites and cattails, and no one ever submitted a bid. So they never happened. So I reached out to him just to say, we're this committee, we're newly reformed after, you know, many years of not happening. We want to know what you're doing. We think you probably want to know what we're doing. And he wrote back an email saying, we're super excited to engage you. And, you know, there are a lot of other players, DOT and blah, 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 blah. And so then I came back to this committee. We discussed the next approach would be for me to reach back out to him. And because it sounded like he would come to a meeting or would do whatever we wanted. And it's been radio silent since then. It's just so odd. I've sent multiple emails and left a couple voicemails.
Yes, so he's the restoration ecologist. He's the head guy.
Yeah.
What do you want from him? I can ask him. Do you want something specific?
I just would like to engage with him on what's going on in Kampoosa and, you know, just start a conversation. He had, you know, I'm not sure who the right contact person is at the pipeline or the right contact person at Mass DOT, you know, just to try to get the names of all the players so that we could start sharing with one another what's going on in there and, you know, formulating some kind of a plan for this committee as well. You know, I just thought maybe something happened to him, like he was on his honeymoon or I don't know.
Nope, he's still there.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll just say, I'll write a little email. I said, your name came up. I was at the steering committee.
Oh, cool. That's good. That's on the down low. I love that.
Maybe if you want to shoot Laura an email, she's
Yeah,
looking.
I mean, he has our email address. You know, he sent it to the KBSC at whatever, townofstockbridge.com. So
Yeah, I'll do a little down low email for you.
okay, love it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, speaking of the local Massachusetts Wildlife Office, Rich.
So I've been in a number of meetings lately with our local Mass Wildlife reps as well as BNRC. And I was speaking with Andrew Madden and indicated that we've kind of recreated the Stewardship Committee in a new form that's on behalf of the town as opposed to what it was before. And I'd asked them if they had any ongoing material that they were tracking with respect to the bog. And he says that they have quite an extensive file on the bog, and he would be more than happy to share that with us. And I just need to get back to him to kind of indicate what we're looking for. I said that, you know, by and large, what I did tell him in the meeting that I had with him is that by and large, I think we have a lot of the supporting material that went into the ACEC designation. So, you know, I think we're good there, at least as far as we can tell right now, but more looking at the sort of what's been going on since that designation and if they've been tracking anything that we could just sort of see and sort of absorb into our record keeping. So I just need to follow up with him, but he's very keen on it. And just like our cohort here at the Nature Conservancy, he also expressed deep eagerness to participate with us when the time is right. He'd like to make sure that Mass Wildlife is involved in helping out as best they can on anything that we're working on. So.
Yeah, that's so great. This is like the opposite of when I was working on economic development and it was like a hot potato and nobody wanted to be involved. This is so much more fun.
Yeah,
Good.
no, they were definitely eager. So more to come on that.
Okay, cool. Can you say his name again for me, Rich?
Andrew Madden.
Okay.
And then there's Pete Molinesi who also works with him. They're both based out of Dalton.
Okay.
But Andrew is, I guess, sounds like Pete has been there forever, and then Andrew's sort of Pete reports to Andrew, and Andrew is pretty much speaking on behalf of the agency. So I just talked to him about that.
Andrew's the Western District head and Pete Melanese is land protection.
Okay, so
Okay.
there it is. Thank you.
Got it. Cool. Okay, Tennessee Gas, I still haven't reached out to them. So I'm going to leave that on for next time. I know who to talk to. I just haven't done it yet. All right, Nature Conservancy, we already did. BNRC, Rich, anything new?
Yeah, so I talked with Doug Brown, who is the Director of Stewardship at BNRC, and he with Beth Mills, who's the new Director of Conservation, said that they would be more than happy to share their files with us. And I grabbed, there were basically 2 box folders that you can't really see from this far away, but this is one of them. The other one was more focusing on a lot of the material that we've already have, and it's also captured in the ACEC document. But this folder is basically going by property. So all the various properties that either abut or have contained, that contain the bog. So like, for example, Tom Lavery, Robert Mitchell, 1985, Keith and Mary Rafferty, 1996. The Marion Fathers has a significant folder in here, and that's all there. And then there's actually some interesting documents around, like, there's a whole folder on the use of herbicides in the bog. So I gathered all of this stuff. I haven't done anything with it yet, because I don't really have access to a kind of system that allows me to simply, scan these easily. But they acknowledge that they are way behind. This is BNRC, are way behind in digitizing their stuff. So they would be more than happy for us to digitize it for them and give them a copy, and so that they can then put this into hard storage somewhere else. So there's a whole other one like this, but I think it's a lot of what we are seeing at the Concom. So I didn't pull that yet. But they're also very eager to be participating. I think when the time is right, they would be eager to help out, in ways that they can.
Okay, God, I feel like we made so much progress since the last meeting. This is great. All right, so then my next one, does anybody have anything else for records and outreach before I move on? Okay.
No.
So this is just a question that I wrote down from the last meeting, because Lisa, I thought you were going to try to poke around about Phragmites, and I know you mentioned it kind of at the start, that in 2014 was the last Phragmites treatment that you think?
That's from native habitat restoration. I don't know if anyone else has done it. I don't know if
I guess, yeah.
Nature Conservancy or anyone else has. So.
Yeah, I don't know.
Back to the question with what's happening in the various state agencies, and then, also the private companies that have interests there. We don't know. Okay. So, all right, digital file storage of all records. I know this was on my to-do list. I haven't gotten to this either. And in some ways I'm glad I didn't, because Rich, you sent that email with the, now I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it's called Landscape.
Yeah, Landscape.
So we, in my role as president of the Land Trust, I've been trying to do a similar thing where I'm trying to organize all of our conservation restriction monitoring and all the information about the properties that we oversee. And it's, it's all sitting in a Google Drive, which is a lot better than where it was, 5 years ago, where it was all in a folder, in a filing cabinet that was falling apart. So we're getting there, but in my conversations with BNRC and Doug Brown, we sort of manage some CRs, and he offered us the opportunity to kind of shadow them while they go and do a monitoring of a CR, conservation restriction. And he was using this nifty thing on his phone and taking pictures, and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I would have to go home and spend an hour mapping, my photos to where I took pictures and stuff like that. And then when we got back, later on when I saw him at his office, he showed me the actual software, and it shows me the whole history of that particular parcel of land in terms of all the monitoring and how it all evolved. And it's all cloud-based. And so I started doing research on it, because I'm probably going to encourage the Stockbridge Land Trust to buy it for the purposes of our needs. But then I noticed that they offer a municipal licensing, opportunity. So I was thinking that this might actually not be a bad thing that could be used not only by Kampoosa Bog Stewardship, but it could also be used by Concom. It could be used by the Stockbridge Bowl Committee. It could be used by the,
Forestry.
by Gold
Parks and
Meadows.
Rec.
Yeah, everybody. So I'm going to probably bring this forward to the select board and to Concom and everybody else to
Great.
say, you may want to take a look at this. I'm actually getting a demo that I'm going to be recording for the purposes of sharing it with the fellow trustees of the land trust to get them, to encourage them to approve buying the software. But I'd be happy to share that software with us and the rest of the town of Stockbridge, because for the price that they charge and for the value that they bring in terms of organizing everything and the tools that they offer for monitoring and stuff like that, it just was like, it saves a lot of time. It's very organized. It's in the cloud. It's redundant. You know, you don't need to have one, like the way we were talking in our last meeting, it sounded like we'd have one person who would be the gatekeeper to this online file storage. And I just thought that was kind of crazy, given the fact that, you know, the whole purpose of cloud storage is to have access. So I'll bring that forward at our next meeting, and I'll share the demo of the video of the demo beforehand.
Want to get on the Concom agenda to talk about it.
I will. I think what I would do is, like, once I get the demo going, and I'll let you all see it, and
Yeah.
you'll be sort of the guinea pigs to see if this is really good. And then if it is good, then I'll go on forward to the Concom and the select board and anybody
Great.
else who needs to look at it to
Great.
approve it.
Yeah, I thought it was smart when you told us about it that you did copy Michael Canales on your email,
Yeah,
because I'm
Yeah.
sure if we're bringing in an enterprise solution for something like this, that, you know, multiple committees, they're going to need to clear it through security and, you know, 'cause
And- and
obviously
and the company seems to be, has been around for a while. And the other thing is that they're using like what I would call, you know, industry standard kind of storage facilities. So like if they were to fold, the company would fold. All of that data is still sitting on a pretty standardized and normalized storage facility that could easily be migrated, I think. And we have the opportunity of backing up. Like anytime we want, we could actually back it up and have a copy of it somewhere else. So I didn't think there was any downsides to this, at least that I could see, but more to come.
I think it's worth exploring, you know, I mean, it certainly brings us into modern times, which would be great.
Mhm.
As opposed to file folders, like you said.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to keep this on here for next time, so you can give us an update, but obviously feel free to send us an email or something if anything comes up. Next, I had mission and vision statement. I'm just leaving this on here because I feel like at some point we're going to, well, or maybe I should just take it off until we're ready to talk about it, but it's something that I'm personally very excited about. So I don't have anything to share. We did talk about it last time that I feel like the previous committee had a good mission statement. So I
don't think we need to remove it. I think, I mean, obviously I'd like to be on a committee where we know what we're doing and what we plan on doing. So I think getting to a point where we're moving in that direction is always a good thing. So
why don't I maybe next, so you know what, next time I'm going to come with maybe a starting point or some proposals, and maybe I'll email them out ahead of time so we can all look over them and see what feels right. And I think we can just take a little bit of the next meeting to kind of talk about it, because as people start to express interest and say, hey, I'd like to join, it would be very smart for us to say, okay, here's what we're trying to accomplish. You know, does this make sense? And okay, so I'll commit to doing that. I've started doodling around with it a little bit once I saw that the previous committee had one. So, okay. All right. And then this was just a question, you know, we have, you guys are all looking at enormous amounts of documents. In some cases, you know, you've emailed out big chunks of documents, and I don't know how other committees would do this. And I know we have to be careful that we're not, you know, deliberating and they're, you know, we're not breaking open meeting laws or whatever. But I feel like when I leave this meeting, you know, life happens and I just go and do other things. And then suddenly a week before the meeting, I'm thinking, oh gosh, I never really got back to reading the 81 pages that Lisa sent out. I read about half of them. And is it just a dumb idea to say that we dedicate a meeting, or maybe it's not a meeting, maybe it's two of us look at some documents together and two of us look at some documents together. I'm trying to figure out how I can personally see everything that I need to see without,
Yeah, I feel like if we had a list, so you created a
sent a
list, Rich is going to have a list of these
Yeah.
BNRC documents. I'd love to read what he has on herbicides.
yeah.
So, but I'm not necessarily interested in reading about things of personal property, files. So having a list and being able to pick some things, maybe we write a little summary that we make available to other people, whatever. But I would definitely want to stake a claim to certain things to read and take notes on.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Hey, Laura,
Yeah.
Brett posed a question in the thing about where he might be able to readily read our mission statement, or the one that was
Oh,
established
from
in
the
previous.
prior committee.
Yeah,
It was in the stewardship.
it's in this document here, right?
Yeah.
Is it the one that, I'm just trying to understand, is it the introduction that just basically speaks to the, in the executive summary?
I'm not with my big fat Kampoosa folder in front of me. It was in the, some of the very first documents that we received,
Right.
which had to do with, it was after the ACEC.
Okay.
And there were, I don't know, I feel like it was in that 81 page thing that Lisa sent us.
So how could we make that public to everyone so that everyone can see that? And before we get to the point of having some place where we have everything online, should we just encourage people to email us and we can send it to them, or?
I mean, the point. So I guess my question is, okay, Brett, I appreciate your question, but the prior committee was a different time and place and et cetera. So I guess I'm questioning why we would need to look at the previous committee's mission and vision statement, because frankly, right now, we don't have most of that stuff digitized. We're still in the gathering of information stage. And
Yeah, no, I thought you had mentioned that you thought it might be useful. So I didn't see it. So if it's a reference point that then indicates, maybe that prior committee, they achieved what they were looking to achieve and moved on, or there's continued work or something. I don't know. I was just trying to get a sense of sort of the direction you're all heading and maybe how we could possibly help, or just get some context. That's all.
yeah. Oh, okay. Well, we're at the stage where we're trying to gather documents from a time when it was not typical to have digital files of anything. So, 20 odd years of minutes from meetings and previous versions of, like drafts of documents that ended up being finalized. And what I had come across was a draft of the vision statement. And then later there was an updated draft of the vision statement, but I don't actually know if I know if it was the final one or not, because I haven't gone through all the documents.
Yeah.
I think I was just curious about what the goal is for you guys now. What are you?
Sorry, she's also Brett's iPad Pro.
I was like, where is that voice coming from? Yeah, so this committee was formed because the ACEC is a special area, that is unique to the state of Massachusetts and also actually unique to the United States. And there was a robust, well-organized committee with a lot of different stakeholders, not just people from the town, but also meaning not just people who lived in Stockbridge, but also the Tennessee Gas Pipeline, Massachusetts Department of Transportation, endangered species people, Nature Conservancy, lots and lots of different stakeholders. at that time, it was not a town committee. It was a committee that was certainly adjacent to the town, but instead mostly, I think the president of the committee was also president of the Stockbridge Land Trust, or was it the Berkshire Land Trust?
Stockbridge Land Trust.
Stockbridge Land Trust, yeah. So she sort of held two roles. She passed away and the committee just sort of petered out. And I think that the select board felt it was important that we start focusing on this very critical environmental area. And so the committee was put back together a few months ago. So to be perfectly frank, I think we don't know precisely what our mission statement is. We're trying to get a handle on what the previous committee did, what their goals were, how far they got in achieving those goals, and then what happened once the committee kind of fell apart. We know that things are still happening there. We know that the Tennessee Gas Pipeline wants to keep their pipeline area open. We know that Mass DOT has discovered that salt is having some negative effects. Salt usage on the roads in the wintertime is having some negative effects on that area. We know that there was an archaeological survey that was done by UMass Amherst, but we're right now trying to gather all the information and put all that stuff together. And we sent the letter out to people who either have property that's part of the ACEC or in the surrounding areas, just to say, hey, we're doing this because we want to hear from you guys if you have institutional knowledge of what worked before or what didn't work before. So to be frank, we're just still trying to figure it out. I think that my hope is that we can get all the stakeholders together and start helping everybody talk to everybody else, because there is activity happening there. And I don't know that we're totally aware of it. And it could be good activity. I'm not saying it's bad activity.
Okay,
Thank you for the context.
thank you.
Yeah.
So
Laura, sorry, could I just request that if people speak, if they could identify themselves by first and last name, please?
Yes. So Brett, could you
Sure, I'll put us in the chat there.
okay.
Yeah.
Louise, can you see the chat? I'm on a computer, so I can.
It flashes up for us.
Okay.
So to go back to an earlier question in terms of prioritizing, I think one of the first documents we all got was the resource management plan.
Yeah.
That's a really important one. And that at the end of it, they break down an implementation summary of what their priorities were and who was doing what. And I think that's a great place for us to go back to and see what they thought was most important and
What was the date? Was that 1997? 99. Okay.
But out of all the documents, I think that's one of the most important ones.
Okay, good point. We should all go back and read that again.
And it's only 52 pages. It's not 84.
52. All right, so back to my question. Do we need a working meeting to review documents? It sounds like no, but I think that the idea, Louise, your idea, or I think it was your idea of, getting kind of a list of what documents are in there. And then when we see that, if you're interested in one specific thing, you can kind of read through that stuff. I don't know.
Right.
So I sent that out for the Concom.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing, is trying to pick out what I think are the most important ones. And I'll send it to you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. So then I had a question, about guidelines. Are there guidelines for residents who live in the ACEC or not? Does anybody have any idea? We sent this letter out. We got some nice responses from people saying, hey, thanks for the letter. Hey, what do I do? How do I find out, where the meetings are? And Louise, thank you for responding to so many of them. I responded to a few as well, or one anyway. And I just wasn't sure. I was just thinking, if I received this letter, I wouldn't exactly know what to do either. And I didn't know if anybody had any idea if you live in an ACEC, are there guidelines for stewardship of it or anything? I can't find anything on their website when I go to the UMass or when I go to the Massachusetts ACEC website?
Don't know. I would assume that the laws that apply have to do with zoning and the
Wetlands, yeah,
what Conservation Commission has authority over.
right.
I
Okay,
think if you read the ACE document, the whole document tells you the intent and the purpose. So one reads that, but a set of guidelines, point A, B, or if you do this, this happens. I think if you're familiar with that, that is the guideline for the protection of the AEC.
right.
I mean, no, I think at some point, somebody should come up with me as a neighbor, what, and I'm encouraged about this, what should I do or not be doing on my property? I don't think there's a document to that.
There, there are a handful of properties that the land trust manages sort of CR's conservation restrictions on that are, I guess, what I would call abutters to Kampoosa Bog. And so obviously those conservation restrictions have very clear guidelines as to what can be and cannot be done. But other than that, I don't know that there's anything specifically laid out. So.
I mean, it makes sense that it's, waterways and wetlands. And so it would be governed by, Conservation Commission and,
Mass Wildlife would have some pretty good stuff to say too. So, sure.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of the answer I thought we were going to have, but it just occurred to me as we were getting a couple of responses from people who said, hey, I got your letter, what do you need from me? I don't really know. Okay. All right. So then,
Question.
We have a question here, Laura.
okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm Eric Carton with my brother-in-law, Sandy Sanderson, who's on the call. The reason we're on the call is because we got the letter, and thank you for it. And our property is at 20 East Street, and I think we're at least an abutter to the bog. So we're just interested in knowing, it's a very valuable thing for us. We love it. And I guess the question is, do we have any obligations to do or not do things? That would be a very useful thing for us to know.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was asking as well. I mean, I think it's, there are certainly a lot of rules and regulations around any wetland in the state. And they vary whether it's a lake or a river or, whatever. I guess me asking sort of a similar question to you, Eric, is, is there a next step for us as a committee to create these guidelines? I know we're not a governing authority the way a conservation commission is, and we don't have to answer this now. I just think it's food for thought because we know that things could happen, upstream that affect the people who live on Kampoosa Brook, right? Is it a brook?
Downstream, yeah. But yeah, that's what I was going to ask Eric are you in any way impacted by the brook that's being fed by the bog down to the Housatonic River?
Yes, the brook runs right through our property and over a dam that was restored with the permission of the Conservation Commission in 1997.
So those will be things that will be of interest to you, like, for example, if and when they execute on the controlled burn, they will need to release some water from the bog, and that water is going to have to go somewhere, which means that there'll need to be some controlled releasing of water so that it doesn't become this, massive tidal wave all the way down to the Housatonic River. So those will be things that you'll be, notified. What I think is part of our mission too is just to help be advocates for the residents who live in and around the bog, and as well as downstream or even feeding into the bog, to be able to just keep them aware of what's going on with other authorities that are potentially managing it and how that may impact you.
That's great. Thank you.
And that's one of the things when we talked about informing the neighbors, because originally the only ones would have been informed on the ACEC were those that were within its boundary. And we felt it was important to go on beyond those boundaries, like yourself, and see who may be impacted so we can continue communications.
For the literal downstream effect
Right.
Right,
of
right.
what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else that didn't make it to the agenda? Otherwise, I'll move on to some housekeeping stuff.
I have available material that was communicated to the Marians through Father Richard. There's an email to Father Richard thanking them for a meeting that took place on Eden Hill. And then he goes on to express, here are the talking points of the meeting. And this is from Alex.
Alex Entrup, who's the Mass Wildlife prescribed fire and habitat restoration biologist.
Yes. So I can share these, I can hand them out. We can review them, and then at the next meeting, we can discuss them if we choose.
Well, I reached out to, when Rich sent, Rich had talked to the fire chief and gotten Alex's contact info. So Alex and I are playing a little phone tag. I called him, left a message. He called me back. I called him back. He was like, ooh, I'm so excited. There's a committee. We would love to have people in Stockbridge, you know, kind of helping us out, for people we can check in with when we have a question and whatever. So I'm going to call him back and see if we can get a hold of each other before the holidays happen. So that's just an FYI. I'm pleased to hear that he sent a follow-up email kind of recapping the conversation.
Yes.
Which is that, right? Is that what you have?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
Yeah.
do that, yeah.
I'll pass them out. The other thing was also Father Richard received a map, an overlay of Kampoosa Bog with the coloring of the various neighbors that would be affected by a potential burn.
So Richard, do you know, since I'm not there, is this the same two things that you scanned and sent to us via email?
This one actually looks a little bit more detailed than,
Okay.
looks like they might have gotten a little further along in their plan. Cause all I had was like just sort of an outline. The
Yeah.
interesting thing here is that they still don't, they just simply are calling out the bog and where the controlled burn would be, but they're not talking about the work, the preparatory work, or at least they're not demonstrating here the preparatory work they would have to do to get to the point of doing a controlled burn, which is the release of the water. But here it's interesting because it's a fairly, distinct corridor of the bog.
Is it all south of the,
And it's also, yes, it is.
Yeah, although it looks like some of the, there'd be no controlled burn area. It looks like that's isn't this where the Tennessee pipeline is?
Yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't appear that there's anything happening in the Tennessee pipeline area.
okay.
But it's anything south of that, and it's going west all the way over to the other side of the Marians. And then it's coming south just north of the Marians. Including, looks like your reservoir. Is that one reservoir you have?
Yes.
Your
Yeah.
fire pond.
Fire pond is included.
Fire.
So I'll also bring this to the Concom just to make sure they're aware that this is happening.
I mean, I would be curious to know what is the process for making them aware? Is it,
I don't know.
yeah, I don't know.
The thing is that my sense is that if there is anyone being made aware, it's not a long-term awareness. It's sort of it happens. And I'm only saying this because I'm a person who lives on the Kampoosa Brook, and we only know about it when we notice that the water is coming down at a rapid rate, that something's going on and that something else is going to happen after that.
Yeah.
So,
Wouldn't they have to supply notice of intent?
I would think
To
so.
do, to
Yeah.
do that? Yeah,
I would think so.
yeah.
And maybe they already have, maybe, I've only been on the Concom a couple of years. Maybe they've already talked about this, I don't know, but I'll make sure that they know.
Well, and it's 23-24, winter of 23-24, so it's not as if it's, February.
Right.
It's for next year, so. So Arthur, how can I see what you handed out to everybody?
We have a question. Go.
I mean, I can add, we just did a controlled burn in a Nature Conservancy DFW property with Alex. I was there. We did a bunch of outreach to neighbors and told them that it was happening. So that's how it does work. So if it's not scheduled for 23-24, it's probably gonna be a winter burn. So all the neighbors will be notified.
my understanding is that like when you do the burn on because like I heard, at least through our fire chief, that when you start burning Phragmites, it's not a nice clean smoke. It's pretty nasty, dark smoke.
It can be, yeah. So we had very little smoke on ours, but we stayed away from, we burned a lot of cattail
Okay.
on ours. And we had a DCR person with like lights. So the fire department is involved.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm just thinking in proximity to the turnpike, you could have some.
They are so on top of weather.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a year out, they'll say it's gonna happen on November 21st.
Right.
It's like they're looking out and they're like, all right, the weather might be right for this coming week. But if the wind shifts or anything changes, they don't do it.
Right.
Yeah, so,
How effective is it?
what's that?
How effective is it?
We had a nice burn, it was really nice, yeah. So,
What,
depending on your definition of nice, I mean, these communities were kept open, and our area is starting to get brushy and stuff like that, so in that it keeps it open and keeps it open for the rare species, yes, it's very.
very effective?
Looks like we got another question.
Okay, so this is from Sandy. It says, what is the purpose of the controlled burn? Just to eliminate the reeds?
Invasive.
Yeah, invasive Phragmites that are non-native, which will, from what I understand, choke out native species. And they can also change the nature of the bog. I don't know if nature is the right word. Isn't there? I feel like I came across something that was, I don't remember now, but it was something more than just choking out native species. I think when the native species that they choke out, then it can change either water levels or something else. Rini, am I making this up?
In the one we did, the amount of Phragmites is slowing the water as it sheets through the fen system and creating land where there wasn't land. So it makes a footprint for shrubby stuff. So where it used to be like wet, spongy ground, it's not anymore. So that's when the shrubs get in, and the shrubs get in, it makes it more inviting for beavers, which dam it up, and then the water rises and drowns out the rare plants. That's what's happening in our place where we did it with DFW.
Interesting.
In the archaeological report, it shows over a period of hundreds of years between each period where a large area was burnt in the watershed of Kampoosa Bog. So archaeologically, the Native American realized that that was a benefit to wildlife, new plantations, and outside of the bog. But they do have definite evidence of a period of time where the bog was burnt over. And of course, that hasn't happened in probably several hundred years or more at this point.
Okay, that's a good question. All right, so should I move on to meeting times? Oh, so wait, just to recap back on this conversation. So I'm going to reach out to Alex. I'll let you guys know like what comes out of it. Arthur, since I'm not there, how can I get a copy of the documents that you're handing out? Do you have them digitally or do you only have hard copies?
No, I can email them.
Okay.
I got them through Father Richard on email, so I can do that.
Thank you. That would be great. Okay. So our next meeting is Monday, January 23rd at 5 PM. Just to remind you, the third Monday of January is MLK Day. So that's why we're meeting 1 week later. So we're actually meeting on the fourth Monday, the 23rd. And then the rest of the meetings, February 20th, which is the third Monday, is President's Day. So we also wouldn't be able to meet on that day. So that puts us at February 27th. But then the following meeting would be March 20th. So are we okay with February 27th? It's actually the fourth Monday of the month. And then we would end up meeting 3 weeks later in March.
Fine.
It's fine.
Yes.
Fine.
Okay, so February 27th, March 20th, I think, is that right? March 20th then would be our meeting in March. Our meeting in April would be April 17th, which is a Monday at 5. Everybody okay so far? And then May 15th would be our May meeting.
That's the only time I would not be able to come is May 15th, but that's okay.
Okay. All right, so then any other agenda items or any comments from the public? From any of our visitors? We're so happy to have you guys join us. Thank you for coming. Okay, all right, so then if there's nothing else, I'm going to move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the meeting is adjourned.